Danny? Steve? Anyone? Nothing. Just a car.
This is Sheriff John Pruitt, Cedar Falls, Minnesota, badge number 047. Today is November 14th, 1992. It's approximately 2:47 in the morning, and I am recording this from my home office at 1142 Birchwood Lane. My wife Margaret is asleep upstairs. She doesn't know I'm doing this. Nobody knows I'm doing this. I've had 3 glasses of whiskey tonight, and I'm going to have a few more before this is over, because what I'm about to say, I've been carrying it for 11 months now, and I can't anymore. I just can't. If you're listening to this tape, it means I'm either dead or I've finally worked up the nerve to send it somewhere it matters. Probably the former. Probably dead. That's fine. That's probably what I deserve anyway. I need to talk about what happened to my deputies. I need to talk about Rowan Road. I need to tell someone why 5 good men went out on night patrol in Cedar Falls and never came back. The official reports say different things. Car accidents. Family emergencies that required sudden relocation. One of them, Danny Harwell, the paperwork says he just quit, walked off the job. None of that is true. I wrote those reports myself. I signed my name to lies because I didn't know what else to do. Because telling the truth would have meant admitting something that no one would believe, something I barely believe myself. And I saw it. God help me, I saw it with my own eyes. Cedar Falls is a small town, population just under 3,000. We're about 40 miles northwest of Duluth, surrounded by nothing but pine forest and lake country, pretty in the summer. Tourists come up for fishing, camping, that sort of thing. But in winter, this place gets dark. I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean the sun sets around 4:30 in the afternoon and doesn't come back up until almost 8 in the morning. 15, 16 hours of darkness. And it gets cold. 30, 40 below, with wind chill. The kind of cold that kills you if your car breaks. Down and you're not prepared. I've been sheriff here for 19 years. My father was sheriff before me. His father was a deputy back when this was still timber country. I know every road, every trail, every hunting cabin within 50 miles. Or I thought I did. Rowan Road runs north out of town for about 12 miles before it dead ends at an old logging access point near the border of the Superior National Forest. Nobody lives out there anymore. There used to be a few families, homesteaders. Mostly back in the 30s and 40s, but they all left. The last one, a Finnish family named Korhonen, they left in 1951. I remember my father talking about it when I was a boy. He said old man Korhonen came into town one February morning, loaded his wife and children into their truck and drove south without stopping. Left everything behind, house, livestock, everything. When someone asked him why, he just said the road wasn't safe anymore, that it had been claimed. My father thought he meant the county had seized the property for unpaid taxes or something like that. But that wasn't it. The Korhonen property is still privately owned to this day. It's just that no one will go there. No one will buy it. It sits empty at the end of Rowan Road, and we don't talk about it. At least we didn't talk about it until January of this year, January 7th, 1992. That's when I lost the first one. Deputy Mark Siebert, 34 years old. Good man, Army veteran. Wife and 2 daughters. Mark had the overnight shift that night. Standard patrol, nothing special. Check the businesses on Main Street, drive the rural routes, make sure no one's frozen to death in a ditch somewhere. At 11:47 p.m., Mark radioed dispatch to say he was heading up Rowan Road to check on a report of lights. Someone driving back from Duluth had called in, saying they saw strange lights in the woods near the old Korhonen place. Probably just kids with flashlights, Mark said. Probably someone ice fishing illegally on private land. He said he'd check it out and report back in 20 minutes. He never reported back. By 12:30, dispatch tried raising him on the radio. No response. They tried again at 12:45. Nothing. At 1:15 a.m. I got the call at home. I drove out to Rowan Road myself with Deputy Pete Graves. We found Mark's cruiser about 2 miles from the dead end, parked on the shoulder with the engine still running and the headlights on. Driver's door was open. Radio was on, but just static. Mark's flashlight was in the snow about 15 feet from the vehicle, still lit, pointing at the tree line. His service weapon was still in the holster, hanging on the back of the driver's seat. He never even drew it. We searched for 6 hours. Dogs, volunteers, everything. The snow was fresh, maybe an inch or two from that evening, and we should have been able to track his footprints. But here's the thing. There were no footprints. None. The snow around his vehicle was completely undisturbed except for where he'd stepped out of the car. Those prints went about 5 steps toward the tree line and then just stopped, like he'd been lifted straight up into the air, or like he'd never existed past that point. Pete said maybe he'd walked backward in his own footprints and then gone a different direction, but that didn't make sense either, because we would have seen where the trail picked up again. We never found Mark Siebert. We never found his body. We never found any trace of him at all. I told his wife he must have wandered off disoriented and succumbed to the cold. I told her we'd keep searching when the weather cleared. I told her we'd find him. I lied. I knew we wouldn't find him because even then, standing in that frozen silence with Pete beside me and the flashlight beams cutting through the dark pines, I felt it. Something was wrong with that road. Something was wrong with the air itself. It felt thick somehow, heavy, like being watched by something so large you couldn't comprehend its shape. Pete felt it too. I could tell by the way he kept looking over his shoulder, the way his voice got tight when he suggested we head back to town and regroup in daylight. We left Mark's cruiser there overnight. By morning, the battery was dead, frozen solid. Every fluid in that engine was frozen and the temperature hadn't even dropped that low. Not low enough to explain it. But I filed the report. I called it an accident, probable exposure, and I told myself it was a one-time thing. Terrible tragedy, but a one-time thing. 3 weeks later, I lost Tommy Reed. Deputy Thomas Reed was 26, unmarried. He'd been with the department for just over 2 years. Good kid. Eager. Maybe too eager. He'd been asking questions about Mark's disappearance. Unofficial questions. The kind you ask at the bar after your shift or over coffee with the older guys. He didn't believe the exposure story. He kept saying something about the footprints. How they just ended. How that wasn't possible. On January 29th, Tommy volunteered for the overnight shift, even though it wasn't his rotation. I should have said no. I should have told him to stay in town, to let it go. But I didn't. I let him take the patrol car out, because part of me wanted to know too. Part of me wanted someone else to go back to Rowan Road and tell me what they saw, to confirm that I wasn't crazy, that what I'd felt out there was real. Tommy radioed in at 10:15 p.m. to say he was starting his route. At 11:30, he called dispatch to report that he was going to drive up Rowan Road. He said he wanted to take another look at where Mark's cruiser had been found. Dispatch told him to check in every 15 minutes. He checked in at 11:45. He checked in at midnight. At 12:15, he didn't check in. At 12:20, dispatch raised him on the radio, and Tommy responded. But his voice was wrong. I've listened to that recording probably 100 times. I have a copy of it here, actually. Let me play it for you. Hold. On a sound of tape being inserted into secondary player. Static, then dispatcher voice. Unit 7, this is dispatch. Please confirm your status, over. Long pause, approximately 8 seconds. Deputy Reed's voice, distant and flat. Dispatch, I'm on Rowan Road, about a mile from the end. I need to report something. Dispatcher, go ahead, Unit 7. Deputy Reed, there's someone standing in the road. Dispatcher, can you describe them? Deputy Reed, it's a man, I think. He's not moving. He's just standing there in my headlights. He's looking at me. Dispatcher, Unit 7, do not approach. Backup is en route. Confirm you are staying in your vehicle. Silence for approximately 4 seconds. Deputy Reed, he's waving at me. Dispatcher, Tommy, stay in the car. Backup is... Deputy Reed, interrupting. He's waving at me to come closer. He wants me to follow him. Dispatcher, Tommy, do not exit the vehicle. Do you copy? Do not exit. Deputy Reed, I know him. Dispatcher, what? Tommy, who is it? Deputy Reed, voice now barely above a whisper. It's Mark. It's Mark Siebert. He's standing right there. He's smiling at me. He wants me to come with him. Sound of car door opening. Dispatcher, Tommy! Tommy, stay in the car! Do not... Transmission cuts to static. Static continues for approximately 12 seconds, then cuts out entirely. End of recording. Sound of tape being removed. I was the backup. I was already in my truck heading up Rowan Road when that transmission ended. I drove as fast as I could on those icy curves, and I got to Tommy's cruiser in under 8 minutes. 8 minutes. The car was there, parked in the middle of the road with the lights on and the engine running. Driver's door open. Tommy's radio was on the seat. His flashlight was on the dashboard, and standing in the headlights, about 30 feet ahead of the vehicle, there were footprints in the snow. 2 sets. One set coming from the tree line toward the car. One set going from the car back into the trees. Both sets of prints ended at the tree line. Neither set continued into the forest. It was like they'd walked out of nowhere and then walked back into nowhere. I followed those prints to the edge of the trees. I stood there with my flashlight pointed into the darkness between those pines, and I called Tommy's name until my throat was raw. Nothing. No response. Just silence so complete it felt intentional, like the forest was holding its breath. And then I heard it. Far away, deeper in the woods than my light could reach, I heard someone laughing. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was too rhythmic, too precise, like someone who had learned what laughing was supposed to sound like, but had never actually felt the emotion behind it. I got back in my truck. I drove back to town. I filed another report. Exposure, disorientation, possible mental health episode. I called Tommy's mother in Wisconsin and told her we were still searching, and I started to understand that something was very, very wrong on Rowan Road. But I didn't close the road. I didn't warn anyone, because what was I supposed to say? What was I supposed to tell people? That there was something in the woods that could look like their dead friends and neighbors, that it could wave to you and smile and lure you into the trees. They would have thought I was insane. Hell, I thought I was insane. But then I lost Carl, Deputy Carl Weissman, 51 years old, 23 years on the force. He was the most experienced officer I had. He'd seen everything: car accidents, domestic violence, bar fights, even a murder back in '78. Nothing fazed Carl. When I told him what happened to Tommy, what I'd heard on that radio transmission, he didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly and said we needed to handle this quietly. He said if word got out that there was something taking people on Rowan Road, we'd have every amateur ghost hunter and conspiracy nut in the state crawling all over Cedar Falls. He was right. So we made a pact. Carl and I would investigate this ourselves, off the books. No official reports, no radio communications. We'd go out to Rowan Road together during daylight hours and figure out what we were dealing with. On February 15th, we drove out there around noon. Clear sky, sun shining off the snow, temperature around 10 degrees. Absolutely beautiful day. We parked at the dead end, right in front of what was left of the Korhonen homestead. The house was still standing, if you could call it that. Roof half collapsed, windows long since shattered, front door hanging open like a broken jaw. No one had lived there in over 40 years, but there were tracks in the snow leading to the front porch. Fresh tracks, human-looking, boot prints maybe size 10 or 11. We followed them. Carl had his weapon drawn. I had mine. We approached that house like we were clearing a hostile scene, calling out, identifying ourselves as law enforcement. No response. The tracks went up the porch steps and through the front door. Inside, the house was gutted. Everything of value had been stripped decades ago. Wallpaper peeling, floorboards rotted through in places, animal droppings everywhere. The smell was incredible. Not just decay, something else, something chemical, almost like ozone, like the air after a lightning strike. The boot prints continued through the house into what must have been a kitchen, and then down a set of stairs into a cellar. We hesitated at the top of those stairs. It was dark down there. Neither of us had brought a flashlight because it was the middle of the day and we hadn't expected to need one. Carl turned on the flashlight mounted on his weapon. The beam illuminated wooden stairs, stone walls, a dirt floor, and standing at the bottom of the stairs, maybe 15 feet away, there was a man. He was facing away from us, standing perfectly still, shoulders slightly hunched. He was wearing a Brown County Sheriff's jacket. My jacket. Not the one I was wearing, obviously, but one identical to it. Same patches, same worn spots on the elbows, same everything. Carl shouted for the man to turn around slowly and show his hands. The man didn't move. Carl shouted again. Nothing. I took one step down, just one step, and the man's head began to turn. Slowly. Too slowly. Like a door swinging on rusty hinges. His neck rotated farther than a neck should be able to rotate, and I saw his face, and it was my face, it was me. My features, my eyes, my graying hair and the scar above my left eyebrow from when I fell off a horse as a kid. It was a perfect copy, except it was smiling. That same precise rhythmic smile I'd heard in the laughter that night. A smile that understood the mechanics of human expression but nothing of the meaning behind it. Carl fired. 3 rounds. I heard them hit something solid, but the thing that looked like me didn't fall. It just kept smiling. And then, very quietly, it spoke. It said my name. My full name. John Patrick Pruitt. It said it in my voice. And then it said, "I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting so long. Won't you come down? Won't you come home?" Carl grabbed my arm and pulled me back up the stairs. We ran. We ran out of that house and through the snow, and we got in the truck and we drove back to town without stopping. Neither of us said a word the whole way. When we got back to the station, Carl locked himself in his office for 2 hours. When he came out, he told me he was taking early retirement. He said he had a sister in Florida and he was going to go live with her for a while. He said he was sorry, but he couldn't do this anymore. He couldn't know what he now knew and keep pretending everything was normal. He left Cedar Falls that night. I got a postcard from him about a month later, postmarked from Tallahassee. It said, "Still sleeping with the lights on. Don't go back there, John. Whatever it wants, don't. Give it to it." See, I never heard from him again. I don't know if he's still alive. I like to think he is. I like to think at least one of us got away. But I couldn't leave. This is my town. My family has been here for 3 generations, and more than that, I felt responsible. Mark and Tommy were dead because of me, because I didn't close that road, because I didn't warn them. I made a decision. I would handle this alone. I would find out what was on Rowan Road, and I would stop it. I started researching. I went to the County Historical Society and dug through every record I could find about the Corhonen family and the land they'd settled on. Most of it was boring. Land surveys, tax records, birth and death certificates. But I found something in a collection of letters donated by a family named Halverson, who had been neighbors of the Corhonens back in the 40s. One letter, dated March 1947, described a conversation between Mrs. Halverson and Anya Corhonen, the family matriarch. According to Mrs. Halverson, Anya had become convinced that something lived in the woods behind their property, something that had been there long before the white settlers came, long before the Ojibwe, long before anyone. She called it the mirror that walks. She said it watched them from between the trees. She said it was learning them, copying them, getting better at pretending to be human with each passing year. She said it had taken her eldest son, Miko, in the winter of 46. He'd gone out to chop firewood and never come back. But 3 days later, something that looked like Miko had walked out of the forest and tried to come inside. Anya knew it wasn't her son because Miko had lost 2 fingers on his left hand in a farming accident years earlier, and the thing that came out of the woods had all 10 fingers. She drove it away with fire, torches, kerosene, anything that burned. She said it was afraid of fire. She said fire was the only thing it feared. The Halverson letter ended there. Mrs. Halverson had dismissed Anya as grief-stricken and possibly suffering from dementia, but I didn't dismiss it. I couldn't, because I'd seen that thing in the cellar. I'd seen it wearing my face, and I knew Anya Corhonen had been telling the truth. I started carrying a lighter, a road flare, matches in every pocket. I told myself I was prepared. I told myself that if it came for me, I'd be ready. I was wrong. On March 3rd, I sent Danny Harwell up Rowan Road. Deputy Daniel Harwell, 29 years old, 2 years on the force. I didn't send him alone. I sent him with Tim Oster, another deputy, as backup. I told them to stay in their vehicles, to keep their radios on at all times, and to report anything unusual immediately. I told them if they saw anyone at all, they were not to approach. They were to radio me and wait for further instructions. I thought 2 men in 2 cars would be safe. I thought the buddy system would protect them. At 9:30 p.m., Danny and Tim drove up Rowan Road together. At 9:45, Tim radioed to say they'd reached the dead end and everything looked quiet. At 10 SAU, Danny radioed to say he was getting out to stretch his legs and have a cigarette. I told him to stay in the car. He laughed, said I was being paranoid, said there was nothing out here but trees and snow. At 10:04, Tim screamed over the radio. I heard him screaming Danny's name. I heard him firing his weapon. 3 shots, then 4 more. Then nothing. Then static. Then, through the static, I heard Danny's voice. Calm, measured, wrong. He said, "Sheriff, I think you should come up here. There's something you need to see. I'll wait for you. We'll all wait for you. We've been waiting so long." I didn't go. I couldn't. I sat in my office with my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the radio. I called for state police backup. I called the county sheriff 2 counties over. I called anyone I could think of. By the time help arrived and we made it up to Rowan Road, both cruisers were empty. Engines running, lights on, doors open. No sign of Danny or Tim. No bodies, no blood. Just footprints in the snow that ended at the tree line. I lost 2 more men that night. 2 more families I had to lie to. And I finally did what I should have done from the beginning. I closed Rowan Road. I told the county commissioners there had been a series of accidents and the road was unsafe. I put up barricades, warning signs. I made it a crime to drive up there without authorization. And then I did something else, something I'm not proud of. I started to erase them. I falsified records. I backdated resignation letters. I created paper trails showing that Mark Siebert had been transferred to a department in Wisconsin, that Tommy Reed had quit to go back to school, that Danny Harwell had simply walked off the job one day, fed up with small-town police work. I made my deputies disappear from the official record because it was easier than explaining the truth. Because the truth was impossible. Tim Oster was the hardest. He had a wife, Karen, 2 kids. I sat with Karen in her living room, and I told her that Tim had been having an affair and had run off with another woman. I told her I was sorry. I told her sometimes men just leave. I watched her cry. I watched her world fall apart. And I said nothing about what really happened because what was I supposed to say? I condemned that woman to a lifetime of anger and betrayal and confusion rather than tell her the truth. That's the kind of man I've become. That's what protecting this secret has cost me. After that night, I swore I would never go back to Rowan Road. I would let the forest have whatever it wanted. I would let the mirror that walks stay in its domain. And I would keep everyone else away, and maybe that would be enough. Maybe it would leave us alone. It wasn't enough. On April 12th, a hiker named Samuel Buxton ignored the barricades and went up Rowan Road on foot. He was an amateur photographer from Minneapolis in town for spring bird migration. He wanted pictures of the old Corhonen homestead for some project on abandoned buildings. We found his camera 2 days later, hanging from a tree branch about a mile from the dead end. The last photo on the roll was of the forest at night. In the corner of the frame, barely visible in the flash, there were at least 6 figures standing among the trees. They were all looking at the camera. They all had Samuel Buxton's face. Every single one of them. 6 copies of the same man standing in a semicircle, smiling that wrong smile. We never found Samuel Buxton. His family in Minneapolis filed a missing persons report. State police investigated. They found nothing. The case is still open. But I know what happened to him. He's out there now on Rowan Road with the others. And sometimes late at night, when I'm doing paperwork at the station or driving home after a long shift, I see them. Figures standing at the edge of the tree line along the highway just outside the reach of my headlights. Watching. Waiting. They look like my deputies now. They look like Mark Siebert and Tommy Reed and Danny Harwell and Tim Oster and Samuel Buxton. They look like the people they've taken, wearing their faces, their bodies, their clothes. And they're getting closer to town. I've seen them on Miller Road, which is only 5 miles from Main Street. I've seen them standing in the parking lot of the Quick Stop at 3 in the morning. I saw one last week standing in my backyard, staring at my bedroom window. It was wearing my father's face. My father, who died in 1979. It waved at me, that slow, mechanical wave, and it smiled. I don't know what they want. I don't know why they take people. I don't know if the people they take are dead or something worse than dead. I don't know if Mark and Tommy and the others are still conscious somewhere inside those copies, or if they're gone completely, erased, replaced. I don't know anything anymore. All I know is that I can't stop them. I've tried. I've gone back to Rowan Road with fire, with weapons, with everything I could think of, and every time they're waiting for me. More of them now. Dozens. All wearing familiar faces. All calling my name in voices I recognize. All asking me to come home. Last week I got a phone call at the station. The voice on the other end was my mother's voice. My mother, who has been dead for 15 years. She said she was waiting for me. She said she'd missed me. She said all I had to do was come to Rowan Road and we could be together again. Forever. As a family. All of us. Everyone I've ever lost. I hung up. I sat at my desk and I cried like a child, and I knew then that this was how it would end. They're patient. They've been here for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. They can wait. They'll keep taking people, keep wearing their faces, keep getting closer and closer to town until there's no one left, until Cedar Falls is empty, until we're all copies of copies of copies, smiling that wrong smile, waving that mechanical wave, waiting for the next traveler to come down the road. I'm recording this because someone needs to know. Someone needs to understand what happened here. If you're listening to this, stay away from Cedar Falls. Stay away from Rowan Road. Stay away from Minnesota, from the Superior National Forest, from anywhere the trees grow thick and dark and the nights last too long. They're spreading. I can feel it. Every winter their territory grows. Every spring we find fewer birds returning, fewer animals in the woods. The forest is becoming theirs. And soon, everything will be theirs. I'm going to Rowan Road tonight, not because I want to, not because I think I can stop them, but because I can't live like this anymore. I can't keep lying. I can't keep seeing their faces everywhere I look. I can't keep waiting for them to finally come for me. At least this way, it's on my terms. At least this way I get to choose. If I don't come back, tell Margaret I love her. Tell her I'm sorry for all the late nights and the missed dinners and the secrets I kept. Tell her she should leave Cedar Falls, go somewhere warm, somewhere the sun shines more than it doesn't. Tell her to forget about me. Tell her to forget about all of us. And if you ever see someone who looks like me, standing at the side of the road, waving at you to stop, smiling at you like an old friend, don't stop. Don't look. Just keep driving. Long pause. Sound of chair scraping with footsteps. Sound of door opening. Silence for approximately 30 seconds. Faint, distant, the sound of multiple voices speaking in unison, words unintelligible. Recording ends. This tape was discovered in the Cedar Falls Sheriff's Department in 1994 during a routine audit following the office's temporary closure. Sheriff John Pruitt was officially reported missing on November 15, 1992. His vehicle was found abandoned on Rowan Road, approximately 2 miles from the dead end. Engine running, headlights on, driver's door open. No body was ever recovered. Between 1990 and 1996, Cedar Falls, Minnesota, experienced the highest per capita missing persons rate in the United States. In 1997, the town was officially dissolved due to declining population. Rowan Road has since been reclaimed by the forest. The Minnesota Department of Transportation has no record of it ever existing. Margaret Pruitt relocated to Arizona in 1993. She died in her sleep in 2001. According to her caretaker, her final words were, "He's at the window again, he's waving." This recording remains classified by federal authorities. Its release to the public has never been authorized. You are not supposed to have heard this. They know you have heard this. They are very patient. They can wait.